Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. We are talking more about Terminal World today. We're moving on to the next archetype after Gusto, and this one today is Ritual Beast. I know a lot of fans out there love Ritual Beast from back in the day. They're nostalgic about it from when it was really good in the game, and I'm actually just really excited about Terminal World. I honestly wasn't sure how excited I should be for Terminal World, and then when we got the Ice Barrier and Inferno cards revealed and saw how good that support was, it made me so excited. Even if these archetypes, the last two, aren't two archetypes that I personally prefer, I'm still excited to see no matter what ends up in there, just because if it's 4 new cards and they're on the level of those, it's going to be really, really legit support for whatever archetype gets it. Plus, I even think it's possible that these archetypes get one more card revealed. So it might be 5 apiece for each archetype. So we'll see. But today, like I said, we're focusing on Ritual Beast. We're going to go over what the archetype has, what the archetype needs, and what I want to see from the support if it were to get chosen here, especially if it's getting support on the level of the other 2 archetypes. So let's just jump into it here. Let's start off with Ritual Beast, give a brief overview of what the archetype does. This is one of the first archetypes that messed around with contact fusing. So you basically can just like banish the materials for some of the archetype fusion monsters just straight up from the field to like cheat out the fusions without even using a fusion spell, which is very cool. And then all the fusion monsters can tag out. There was a very, very serious restriction though on the archetype, and that is that every single main deck monster in the archetype can only be special summoned once per turn. So you cannot keep looping them, even though some of the extra deck monsters are aren't once per turn at all. The main deck monsters are, so it does kind of hinder them in that way. But there's some other ways you can work around it, so we're going to be keeping an eye on that as far as what we're talking about today. So let's get into this thing. Let's just start off with the monsters. So you can break the main deck monsters up into 2 different categories. You have your Ritual Beast Tamers and your Spiritual Beasts. So it's essentially like the trainers and the Pokemon kind of scenario, like the animals and the humans kind of situation. So starting with the Tamers, Elder is probably the most important one we have at the moment, because he's one of the very few cards in the archetype that allows you to put 2 monsters on the field in one turn. The same turn he's normal summon, you get an additional normal. That's basically it, but that's pretty important for this archetype. Next up, you have Ritual Beast Tamer Lara. When she's normal, she can special a Ritual Beast from Grave. Wen is the same thing, but from Banish. And then you have Spiritual Beast Tamer Winda. This is a weird extra case here with Winda, because she doesn't have any effect to extend you. She just says if she is destroyed by battle or card effect from the opponent, you can special summon a Ritual Beast monster from deck or extra, ignoring its summoning conditions. So a pretty decent float. The reason this card is really interesting is it's actually a Spiritual Beast and a Tamer at the same time, if you look at its name. So it can count as either material when you're contact fusing, which is really nice. It makes it for some nice versatility in the deck sometimes. So cool card, interesting card. I doubt it's a 3-of in the deck, unless like the support really makes this card fit even better. But it is an interesting card for those reasons. Like if we get really good searchability in that regard, then maybe she does come up just because she can be either material, which can be nice. So we'll see. Moving on to the rest of them, the Spiritual Beast. Cannahawk lets you banish a Ritual Beast from deck, and you get it 2 turns later, but honestly getting it banished is the more important thing anyway. Rampengu can banish a Ritual Beast from your extra deck to send a Ritual Beast from grave, from deck to grave, so kind of a Foolish Burial and a banish at the same time. Very good card as well at getting your materials set up. Apelio can banish any Ritual Beast from grave to give an attack buff. Not a huge deal. The attack buff doesn't matter that much, but mainly it's just getting more names in Banish Zone. And then Petalfin. This card's the worst one for sure. I actually think this one probably won't see play going forward. It can banish a Ritual Beast from hand to bounce a card on the field, essentially. Losing a card from hand is rough. If this was grave, it'd be a little more interesting just for like utility removal and just being another name otherwise, but I think this one might get cut from the list potentially, unless we absolutely need the name. Okay, moving into the spells. There's 2 spells, and they're both really mediocre to me. The first one is Bond. This one essentially just lets you quick effect contact fuse on the opponent's turn. This becomes a little more interesting if we get a new extra deck monster that has a powerful effect on summon. That way we could like summon it on the opponent's turn. But aside from that, I'm not too impressed by this card, so it's just okay to me. And then you have Return. This can banish a Ritual Beast from your hand to summon a Ritual Beast monster from Banish or Grave. I don't love this effect because you have to give up 2 cards in hand, but it's an extension effect, so okay, maybe it could come up. The traps are actually some of the better cards. I like Steeds. Steeds can target any number of monsters on the... Actually, it doesn't even target. Just a non-target destroys monsters on the opponent's field up to the number of ritual beasts you control. Don't hate that effect at all. I don't love that it's only monsters. That's one of the biggest downsides of this card. But non-target, it can potentially pop up to 4 or 5 monsters all at once, so there is some high ceiling there. It's a pretty good card. It's not even once per turn, so ending on multiple of them is actually pretty good as well. And then Ambush. This is a really good follow-up card. You get to target a Tamer and a Spiritual Beast that are banished or engraved and special summon them in defense mode. It locks you into Ritual Beast till the end of the turn, but that doesn't matter because you're getting just like 2 bodies back to immediately play next turn. So it's actually a pretty good follow-up. And this is one of the ones to keep, one of the cards that I think to keep in mind the most, because this card could go from being just a really good follow-up card to like a legit interactive card where, let's say we get a new main deck monster that when it's special summoned actually does, like what if we get a retrain of Petalfin to just make it better, and it says like, if this card's summoned, banish a Ritual Beast from grave to like banish a card on the field. So now like this card becomes a banish while also giving you more names, giving you follow-up at the same time. I think there could be some extra value there depending on what some of the specific support looks like. So keep an eye on this one for sure. From there, we move to the extra deck. Kimoon Falcos. New Link monster for the Archetype. Not new. It's a couple of years old now. It gives a 600 attack and defense buff to anything it points to Ritual Beast-wise. It gives an additional normal summon for your Ritual Beast, and then it has the same quick effect, tag-out effect as all the other contact fusions. So it's a pretty good card overall, but the deck needs a better main deck engine to facilitate this card, for sure. Next up we have Ritual Beast Ulti Canahawk. This is the most broken card in the Archetype. By far, hands down, this card is actually insane. So you can return 2 of your banished ritual monsters to the grave to add a Ritual Beast card from deck to hand. That is not once per turn. Or actually, it's a soft once per turn. So what you do is you would summon this card, do that, then tag it out, then contact fuse it again, and do the same thing again. And sometimes you could do it up to 3 times in a turn, and that's how you ended on like 2 to 3 trap cards in the same turn. And that's what made this deck one of the best, like first like actual combo decks in the game. And has the same tag out effect at the same time. There's a really interesting like ruling here where because I think it says like return them to the graveyard, I think it means you only have to return 1 at least to get the search. I don't quote me on that. I know there's like a weird ruling here. So like because the tag out effect is quick effect, you can like use the first effect to like target 2 Ritual Beasts. Then you could chain the other effect, special summoning one of the targets you were going to return to grave, and then something else, and tag it out. That way you only actually had to lose 1 monster from your banished, and the other one just ended up getting summoned. And I think as long as 1 gets sent, you can still resolve the effect to search. It's a weird ruling. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been so long since I've messed with this deck. It's been like 4 or 5 years now. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I believe there's like a funky ruling like that that makes this card broken. So yeah, this card's crazy. Usually it's going to search for you like 2 to 3 times in a turn. And depending with the new support, maybe it's 3 to 5 times. I don't know. Crazy. Next up, we have Ulti Apelio. This card just allows you to OTK. He's just big, and he's unaffected by card effects when he attacks. So cool. Ulti Petalfin, this card just can't be destroyed by card effects and tags out. Yep, the same. And then the last one is Ulti Guy Pelio. This one's actually pretty interesting. We haven't summoned... You don't usually summon this card much in old Ritual Beast, but depending on how good the engine gets at upgrades, this card could be a little more interesting. So it's a negate. During either player's turn, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, banish a Ritual Beast monster or card from hand to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Now the problem is he takes kind of a lot of investment. You have to use an Ulti Ritual Beast, which is one of the other fusions, a Tamer, and a Spiritual Beast. So he takes 3 monsters, but there are things like Winda. Where's she at? I think she's here. Where like if she's destroyed, she can just cheat him out right out the gate. So like that's something. I could see a world where the support is a little more based around like getting this guy out easier, because the one thing that's kind of annoying about the extra deck is there's no interruption there. None of the monsters offer any interruption whatsoever. So that's one of the key pieces I'm looking for as far as new stuff goes. Whether it's a main deck monster that offers you support, or like I said, maybe Ambush being able to summon monsters back and then their interruptions on the opponent's turn. That could definitely be a way they go about it. As well as, just give them if they want to give him a new contact fusion that's a little bit easier to make than Guy Pelio, I get that. Or they could just make something that makes making Guy Pelio a little bit easier. That could be the other way they go about it, for sure. So I'm curious to see where they go. I don't love that he has to like banish a Ritual Beast from hand, so like you have to give up hand advantage for it, but it's there, and that's also not even a once per turn negate. So as many Ritual Beast cards you have in hand, that's how many negates you have, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This archetype needs a lot. Now it does have some tools. It does have a nice setup of like cards for sure. But it needs a lot. As far as like being able to compete in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, the deck needs like literally everything. The deck needs starters. The deck needs more starter cards. There's not a single one card play, and most of the 2 card plays are exactly like Elder plus one of the 2 best Spiritual Beasts. I think those are the best combos the deck has for 2 cards, right? It's Elder plus Kanahawk, Elder plus Rampengu. Those are like the 2 card combos that are like okay, that do enough right now. That is not going to fly. The deck needs way more consistency than that. That's just not going to be enough. So maybe a new monster that is actually a 1 card play. They already have one that summons from grave, one that summons from banish. If they got one that's summoned from special summoned from deck, or maybe even it's a monster that says like, if this card's normal summoned, you can add a Ritual Beast monster from deck to hand, and then it has a second effect that says once per turn you can additional normal summon. So it's like Tour Guide, but it doesn't even special, so that monster can still be special back off of the contact fusions. That would be something really cool. Something for consistency. I don't care if it could also be spells. Give them a new monster that's a 1 card play, and then give them a new spell that is, maybe it's the same thing. Search a monster at once per turn, extra normal summon for a Ritual Beast. Just kind of like the Cyberdark continuous spell. Something like that. They need some help like that. They need huge help to those engines. Not only does the deck need consistency, it needs better extendability. The deck does not really extend through interruption. 1 interruption on this deck is usually just enough. Because the deck doesn't have extenders. The monsters don't extend themselves from hand really at all, so the deck really would love to see some sort of extension tools here or there to help either play through interaction into boards going second at all. It really doesn't do anything at all, as well as like not losing to hand traps. When this deck was good, there weren't nearly as many hand traps as there are now that you need to expect to be playing against. So deck needs help against those 2 things. And then power. Basically the best thing the deck can do right now, like your best play is like setting up like, I think it's just setting up like 2 steeds and an ambush. That's like the best end board you can make in this deck right now. And you have follow up with ambush and you have 2 waves of pops, but like that's like the weak combo that like Prank Kids did, except Prank Kids would have like way better follow up, and you would have plussed way harder than this deck for Prank Kids, and it did it off of 1 card combo, and you could play 20 copies of that 1 card combo, so that wasn't a problem. And Prank Kids also hasn't been in the meta for a year. So, like, big glaring issues with the deck. Speed, power, consistency, durability. Like, literally every category you can almost point to for a Yu-Gi-Oh deck in which you would want at least, like, 3 out of those 4, areas to be, like, pretty high on the scale. It's literally low in all of them. So, yeah, there's a lot. They need something better to end on. They need more consistency. They need maybe 2 cards at least that go straight into being like awesome extenders for the deck. And then, whatever else, I think they need just to patch things up. So this is one of those archetypes, because they need help in all of those categories. I don't know if 1 card can do it. Or, I'm sorry, I don't know if 4 cards can even do it. Because, like, what do you give them? 1 main deck monster, 1 spell consistency card, maybe a new extra deck monster that's, like, actually an easier to get to, like, end board piece, like interruption. And then you have 1 more card. But I'm not sure with 1 card, with 1 monster and 1 spell, you could completely solve the consistency and extendability issues the deck has. So maybe it's just 3 main deck cards that all go towards consistency and durability, and then 1 extra deck monster that helps with like end board presence. maybe that's the best way to go about it. It's going to be tough, but I do still think there's a base here, and you can't just ignore this deck, especially when the deck has a card like Ulti Canahawk running around. That's like one of the most broken in Archetype extra deck monsters I've ever seen. It's really, really good. So I'll keep an eye on this stuff. Also, one huge thing that I also want to mention is because this card only pops monsters, this deck has a huge weakness to back row. It literally does not have a card that deals with back row at all. So maybe some kind of tool that just allows them to hit back row somewhat easily would also be very, very welcome. We'll see. I'd still love to see this archetype get support. I think this has a better base than stuff like Gusto, but you know, Konami would really have to come through on this archetype and be like, if they're only going to give them 4 cards, they need to be like 4 for 4, like the right kind of cards that this deck needs, for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much everything here for Ritual Beasts. Really cool. I've always liked this archetype. The lore, the artwork for the archetype is really cool. But that's my thoughts on them. They really need everything, to be honest. But I want to know what you guys think. If you're a little bit more tightened up on what Ritual Beasts are and need, let me know in the comment section down below. Get a little bit more specific in exactly what you'd want to see for support. I'd love to hear your guys' recommendations there. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always. If you want to see me continue with the dual terminal discussing decks that should get support and what we'd want them to get, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always checking that, and you know, as long as Konami's going to hold off information on this set, we got more time to make more videos about these cards because they're fun, these archetypes. So I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't. Peace.